All right, season finale, December 19. I thought that was kind of a weird title when I first saw it. Apparently, that's the date of the All Valley tournament. It doesn't really have much significance in this episode. I guess it just sort of emphasizes the fact that it's Christmas. But the fact that it's Christmas outside of there being Christmas decorations for that event that Johnny and Daniel are at, doesn't really play into anything. I thought there was going to be more of a sort of culmination of like Johnny and Daniel's storylines with the kids' storyline in this episode, maybe, but the sort of fights they have at the end, because I kind of guessed there was going to be another fight, it's like, it seems to be like the custom now. There's some sort of big event for fight at the end of each season now. I thought that was going to play more into the storyline with Daniel, Johnny, and Ali, but it was almost kind of like two separate storylines that came together at the end. You got Ali bringing Daniel and Johnny together. I guess we're now supposed to embrace the fact that they are basically friends. They're going to be working together from now on, however much longer there is. And Kreese is now the clear sort of bad guy. For a long time, it was sort of like there was no clear sort of villain. It was just Daniel's story and Johnny's story. But it's pretty clear now that they're playing up Kreese to be the bad guy. And actually, they're kind of playing up Cobra Kai to be the bad guy. But the show's called Cobra Kai, so that's also kind of weird. But yeah, we get another sort of big fight this time at the LaRusso's house. They try and do another sort of one-shotter, which actually kind of annoys me, because if you look at like one of the very first things in that one shot, you've got a guy sort of going across the table, and if you watch it sort of carefully, you can see he sort of throws himself across the table quite sort of deliberately. It's some rather poor stunt work, and then when he turns around, he's clearly smiling. So I think the director really should have yelled cut there, because it was right at the start of the one shot. But otherwise, it's quite good. I like the way they bring Tori and Sam sort of together, just sort of by chance, and then Sam just basically just runs for it. I'm like, come on, Sam, you got to step up eventually. What was Daniel saying to you just like a few episodes ago? You've got to be bigger than that. It doesn't really sort of tie into this idea of, defense only or something, because it's not like she even stood there and waited for Tori to make the first move or anything. She just literally ran for it. So that disappointed me. This show does embrace a lot of sort of fan service, but I don't know, that felt a little bit too sort of, hey, see what we're doing here? Kind of thing, by sort of playing up, it's Sam and Tori again. And it actually didn't really amount to very much. They do seem to be sort of trying to make that the equivalent of Johnny and Daniel from the films. They've even got Tori wearing a skeleton outfit. But the big thing, I think, in that fight really is Hawk's sort of change of heart. They've kind of played up, the possibility that he's sort of recognizing now that Cobra Kai is bad news, really, and it's not really what he set out to do. And he maybe has perhaps a little bit sort of figured out that he doesn't really like anybody that's at Cobra Kai now. Kyler was a bully to him. Kreese is not the reason why he became Hawk. That was all Johnny. Miguel's not there anymore. Dimitri's not there anymore. Mitch isn't there anymore. Maybe part of it is kind of like him just sort of deciding, I don't really like it at Cobra Kai anymore. I'm going to switch sides. So, I don't know. He's obviously at Johnny and Daniel's combined dojo now. It'd be interesting to see next season if he really agrees with a lot of Daniel's teachings there, or what's going to happen there. I mean, you may see some friction between Johnny and Daniel next season as well, if they disagree in their teachings. But I'm interested to see that. We're going to see some pairings that maybe we haven't seen very much of up until this point. Daniel and Miguel in particular, and possibly Johnny and Sam. I don't think they've had any real individual screen time before. Speaking of actually unusual pairings, as Tori walks out and she sort of calls Miguel and Hawk sort of traitors, but even as she says it, she seems sort of unsure. She says, watch your back. And then Dimitri comes in and says, no, we're going to be watching their backs for them. Tori sort of looks at him sort of like, who the hell are you? Because I don't think she's been at all aware of the existence of Dimitri up until this point. I mean, she was there during the fight at golf and stuff when she got Hawk to break his arm, but I don't think she even realised that was who he was. When Dimitri made the speech at Moon's party in season 2, she'd already disappeared from the party by that point. Yeah, I don't think she's at all aware of Dimitri's existence up until that moment there where he says that to her. But yeah, Dimitri's also really emerged this season as an actual proper confident sort of guy who can actually fight now and stand up for himself. They do seem to be sort of going into a bit of a sort of template of when the fights are going to happen during the season. We get like a fight at the beginning, we get a fight like partway through the season, and then we get the big one-shot fight at the end. I don't know, it felt a bit sort of copy and paste to me. Also, that fight didn't really sort of feel like it meant as much. The Cobra Kai kids just sort of showed up at their house just to fight them. There wasn't much more to it than that. So yeah, that fight was sort of okay as a fight, but I don't know, from a story perspective, it didn't work quite as well for me. We get some more flashbacks with Kreese. His girlfriend apparently died in a car crash. Sort of went nowhere to me. I guess that was just a sort of moment to sort of torment Kreese right before the sergeant thought he was going to kill him. I guess we get kind of an arbitrary reason as to why he maybe called his dojo Cobra Kai because of the snakes in the pit. Quite an interesting sort of window into why exactly he believes in no mercy. I guess we're supposed to assume that that's Terry Silver, who sort of befriends him at the very end when he lets him out of the cage and then he rings him on the phone. Maybe it's subversion, though. Maybe it isn't actually Terry Silver. Maybe it's somebody else. The big sort of wager at the end, which is like everything's going to be decided at the tournament. I don't think Kreese is going to follow up on that deal. I think maybe we're going to see him go back on that in some sort of way. Maybe there's going to be something about how he didn't really agree what their bargaining was, if they won or if they lost. It's interesting, actually. Kreese says, if we lose, and Johnny just says, we won't lose. And that's the end of it. He might back out of that deal, depending on what happens. I think Cobra Kai is going to win, to be honest. I think we're going to see it at the very start of Season 4. And I think we're going to see Cobra Kai win that. Presumably, Robbie is going to be the one to actually win that tournament. I know Robbie might be in a little bit of indecision about if he's right to do this. We've got sort of two people at Cobra Kai now that we kind of like, Tori and Robbie, but they both seem a little bit sort of unsure about if this is the right thing to do. I mean, I think they're going to want to keep this show going for at least a few more seasons. So if they're going to call the show Cobra Kai, we need to have some people at Cobra Kai that we actually kind of root for and kind of like. Although the show seems to be sort of playing up those two as sort of people we don't like. We're clearly supposed to dislike Kreese. And we're supposed to dislike Robbie at this point, I wonder. I mean, he's Johnny's son. Obviously, a lot of sort of fan servicey stuff about reminiscing about the events of the first film with Ali, Daniel, and Johnny and Amanda probably hearing about a lot of this stuff for the first time. So that's kind of interesting. A little bit of a homage to when Daniel ran into that waiter in the film and he gets the tomato sauce all over that white outfit as that waiter nearly runs into Johnny while he's wearing that white jacket. He literally says, I'm wearing white here. That's actually something I've never quite understood about the film, because Daniel sees Ali with Johnny, and then there's sort of that big chase through the kitchens between the two of them, where Daniel runs into the waiter. And then the next time we see Ali, she's sort of mad at Daniel for some reason. I don't quite understand why. It seems pretty clear we're going to see Ali again at some point. Maybe she'll come back and visit their dojo. We don't have a name for this new dojo as of yet. Maybe that's going to be something that causes friction between Daniel and Johnny as well. You know, they can't agree on a name. Sort of culmination of the storylines. You know, we've got Daniel and Johnny becoming sort of friends properly for the first time. We've got their dojos uniting. And we've got kind of much more of a sort of simplified sort of situation now with everybody that we kind of like and root for being part of this new dojo. And then we've got the bad guys at Cobra Kai, except for, you know, Robbie and Tori, who, you know, I guess we're not quite sure if we still like or not. What happens with that situation is probably going to be decided at the tournament. So yeah, there were a lot of different storylines this season, and they all sort of culminated fairly well, I thought. It felt like there wasn't really any clear storyline to sort of properly wrap up and finish at the end of this season. You know, Miguel learning to walk again had already been resolved. Miguel and Sam, I guess, are back together. Hawk switching sides, I suppose, is kind of an interesting sort of arc that he gets. Perhaps we're going to see a bit more of him next season. Maybe we're going to get some flashbacks of him, you know, what happened before the events of Cobra Kai. And Kreese's storyline in the flashbacks, I suppose. There was an interesting culmination to that. I hope we get some more flashbacks with Kreese next season. Maybe him making the decision to first form Cobra Kai, and then what his first experiences with Johnny were. We need to see that, because we've already had the young Johnny appear in this series. I was convinced we were going to meet Miguel's dad at some point this season, but that didn't happen. For something to explore later on, because obviously they want to get as many seasons out of this as they can. So I guess, you know, they are just sort of keeping things on the side, you know, to bring them into play when they want to. Terry Silver and Mike Barnes are probably going to come back at some point. I'd like to see Ali actually meet Johnny's friends from the film. So yeah, overall, decent enough season. The biggest negative I would have to say about it is they are definitely playing up Cobra Kai as the bad guys now. Seems strange to me given the original idea for the series, and I think also the fact that the show is actually called Cobra Kai. The two main characters, Miguel and Johnny, no longer be part of Cobra Kai. It kind of goes against the whole idea of the show. So it's a tricky situation they've got now, given the name of the show. But I'm guessing Cobra Kai are going to win that tournament. Maybe next season is going to be all about Robbie and him sort of questioning whether or not Kreese's teaching is all right. But yeah, that's that, guys. That's season 3. Probably not quite as good as season 1, and maybe, I would say, just a little bit better than season 2. Oh, actually, another positive, I would say, when compared to season 2, is very little romance in this season. They really went over the top with the romance in season 2, and not quite non-existent, I would say, but there's very little of it this season, so I was glad about that. That's that season 3 of Cobra Kai. Hope you enjoy these vlogs, and I will see you again soon, guys. Farewell.